looking back in time. And at one point in time, long before any of us were born, maybe at the beginning of the last century, that tree was a small sapling somewhere. And it grew for 100 years, and we found it, and we harvested it, and we turned it into a great-looking piece of furniture. Harden was founded in this part of the world in 1844. We'll be 170 years old next year. The family arrived sometime around the start of the Revolutionary War and remained here operating sawmills and doing contracting work through the construction of the Erie Canal, timbering up in the Tug Hill area, and eventually started making furniture in 1844. I'm the fifth generation of Harden to run the business. We've had a remarkable string of success over the years. Not all of it has been easy, but we're the oldest furniture manufacturer in North America at this point, and hopefully have a lot of great years ahead of us. There's a saying that goes, we're not the best because we're the oldest because we're the best. And it takes a certain commitment on the part of the family, on the part of all our employees, to quality, to integrity, to design, to attention to detail that allows you to survive and succeed in this business over a period of 170 years. Only premium hardwoods, primarily cherry, some black walnut, some maple, some curly maple, and primarily it comes from a very small radius of this factory, within 50 miles. We have the opportunity to be very selective in the materials we use. Things like black cherry are fairly specific to the northeastern part of the United States. For black cherry to be the kind of quality that we need, it needs to be trees that have grown slower, meaning a colder climate, like we have in upstate New York. It means a certain age tree. It means a certain way of processing that. And fortunately, we run them through our own sawmill, so we control that process from the start to the finish. I think, in all honesty, the most important role in the production of this table is the sawmill. You know as soon as you see the flitch coming off that log if it's the right material for a table like this. It's a decision they make at a split second. They take one look at that log as it's being opened up, and they see the color, they see the grain, they see the right mixture of natural defects, they see the right shape in the edge. And at that point, you say, this is the right log to make natural edge tables, and you cut it accordingly. All the other steps really start there, because if you don't have just the right material, you're not going to be able to make a great looking table. There comes a point after it's been dried, we'll have a lot of inventory of lumber, and we pull all of that lumber and it's scattered all over an area in the back part of the wood shop. And we're looking for certain boards.
Yeah, this one's a good board. You let a little of these wormholes go, nice and white, a lot of curly in it. The bottom can have a lot of pitch, whatever. We're just worried about the top. The top looks good.
And it's a little bit like putting a puzzle together. It's not consistent. There's going to be variety. There's going to be some characteristic in every part of that table.
I like these knots, how they kind of run down through this particular board. I would love to have that side up, but I don't know if that's going to tear out or not. When this gets planed up and then hand planed, a lot of this character is gonna, it'll jump right out.
Absolutely, imperfection is beautiful in these tables. If it were perfect, if everything aligned beautifully and perfectly, they wouldn't have the same kind of character. It is the mineral marks, it is the big swirls in the grain. It's a little bit of the history of the tree. That might have been something that happened to that tree in 1945 or 1950. Somebody at one point cut an 8-inch limb off that tree to make that trunk look a little bit cleaner. And here 40 or 50 years later, it's part of your table.
What I try to do there is I try to space out the plant kind of evenly, so then we get basically a nice tight bond. All we do right now is just kind of draw it up. I'll have to use the big air hammer to make sure everything's pushed in tight. This can be a little loud sometimes. That may sound corny, but every top I do, I know it has the Harden name on it, but I know it's associated with me and I want it to look its best, so I try to do the best I can on each one. Each of these tables has its own, there's no two tables the same. I can make a cherry conference table and they'll all look the same. None of these ever look the same, they're always different.
It's nice to be able to leave a lot of the natural characteristics of the lumber in the table. Too many products today they're plain vanilla or they're plain chocolate. They go through and they'll use a photo finish, or they might not even use a hardwood. They might use an MDF, which might have a film applied to it to look like hardwood. This is the real thing. These are real trees. These are real boards. These things have tremendous beauty. You know, they've also got their own natural characteristics. But the end, if we put them together properly, is a great combination. Very stable from a construction standpoint, but absolutely spectacular from a characteristic standpoint. There are other steps in the production of this table where really there are just a couple of people who are able to do that, who have the skill to do it. Gluing up that top and some of the construction part of it, you know, requires a tremendous amount of skill and experience. Hand planing that thing is that's a tough chore. When we talk about hand planing, we actually mean an old block plane, a plane that you might have seen your grandfather using back in the days when planes were used instead of modern electrical equipment. While there are just a handful of people who have the skill and the experience to make these tables, there's also technology involved as well. When I mentioned earlier that we route into the bottom of the table to install channel iron, we're using a very sophisticated router to do that. It's a $250,000 piece of equipment. It's computerized, it's programmed by an engineering department that is as good as any in the industry. It's a wonderful mix of technology and craftsmanship. It is a small team that builds these tables. It might be 15 or 20 people from the start. And they're the folks who have got the most experience here. They're the ones who really understand what this needs to look like.
I think we're all proud of the product we do. Every one of these girls, if you talk to them, I mean, they feel the same way. You know, but it looks beautiful, it's beautiful, and we're proud of it because we were the starting process as far as the finishing aspect of it. So, but I think everybody right through here would tell you the same thing. You know, the girls over in rubbing, when they get done rubbing it and it's the final, they're proud of it. It's just beautiful. So. It's not, no different for me than it is for everybody else. We all feel the same.
When we contrast that sapwood, we do have to mask that off. And it's a very time-consuming, painstaking process because it all has to be taped off. And it'd be a lot easier if that line were perfectly straight. But it runs in and out and up and down, and it's not consistent. So they've got to be very, very careful in masking that off so that you don't have any color carrying over onto the sapwood. And likewise, you don't mask off some of the heartwood that you want to have a redder color. We've seen a little bit of how it's built, and at this point in the finishing operation, it's been hand planed, it's been sanded, it's been masked, and we've done the NGR, the non-grain raising stain portion on the interior part of the table. It gets a little bit more color, it'll then get sealer, it'll be sanded, it'll get first coat of lacquer, sanded, and then second coat of lacquer, and then it'll be ready. These are not easy tables to finish. We offer 40 or 50 different finishes. It can be distressed, it can be hand planed. There are a lot of different options with finishing. It's a very labor-intensive process. Our finishing process for these tables is not only an exacting process, but it is very artistic. It takes a tremendous amount of skill to know exactly how to finish this table, how to bring out grain characteristic, in some cases how to hide color variation, in some cases how to accentuate color variation.